Hello and welcome to the Learning Resource Center South short video series on neurodiversity. This session is The Language of Neurodiversity. My name is Amy Accardo. I'm an associate professor at Rowan University in the Interdisciplinary and Inclusive Education Department. In this session, we will talk about neurodiversity and the neurodiversity paradigm, person first versus identity first language, functioning levels versus support levels, and we will consider language usage and definitions surrounding many terms related to neurodiversity and disability. Let's begin this session with an anticipation guide. So as I read each of the 4 phrases on this slide, jot down on a scrap of paper or some kind of paper that you have nearby if you agree or disagree with each of the statements. Number 1, person first language is the preferred language referring to people on the autism spectrum. Agree or disagree? Number 2, the DSM Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5 criteria for ASD autism spectrum disorder distinguishes between high functioning and low functioning autism. Agree or disagree? Number 3, this statement, the neurodiverse student may be reluctant to disclose their disability to others, is worded professionally. And number 4, ableism is the practice of accommodating for people with disabilities to allow them to be able to be successful. Agree or disagree? So you can put those aside. This guide also provides a preview of topics to be discussed, and we will come back to these 4 statements at the end of the session. So in the first short video, we considered neurodiversity defined as the full range of variations in cognition, learning, behavior, and socialization that exists within the population. And we also considered the neurodiversity movement, which is a social justice movement that seeks civil rights and full societal inclusion for the neurodivergent. So now let's add another term, the neurodiversity paradigm. And let me make a distinction here that neurodiversity and the neurodiversity paradigm are not defined the same. While neurodiversity is a fact, the neurodiversity paradigm provides the philosophical foundation for social justice activism. It promotes the shared beliefs that all forms of neurological diversity are valuable, that neurological diversity is honored like any other form of diversity, including race, ethnicity, gender, identity, religion, sexual orientation, etc. That neurodivergent people include those benefiting from all levels of support, and that disabilities are understood through a strength-based lens, and of course, one that filters out social prejudice and deficit language. For more information on the neurodiversity paradigm, you can visit Autistic Scholar, the blog of Patrick Dwyer, who's an autistic PhD student, through the link on the left side of the slide where it says click here. I also added here 2 recommended resources for you to either stop and check out now if you want some background reading, or once this video ends, to that of Dr. Nick Walker's blog and also the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. So now in terms of language around disability in general, first I ask you to think about person first versus identity first language. So I was trained as an educator. As educators, many of us were trained in our teacher preparation programs to sort of become the person first language police, right? Like I used to point out a problem when person first language was not used. I'd hear it in professional meetings as well as on TV or in the media. And times have changed, and person first language is no longer in everyone's best interest. So checking out the content of this slide, on the first paragraph, it notes that there was widespread belief that the use of person first language was important in order to not define any individual by their disability. More recently, however, that has completely shifted. Autistic self-advocates now voice a preference for identity first language. They want to be called autistic, right? Self-advocates express that being autistic is a large part of their identity, and many self-advocates reject the use of person first language, such as person with autism, arguing that it denies their identification as autistic. So what should you call an individual with autism? Professional recommendation is really to ask a person's preference if you need to use, a label for some reason. And you will note I vary the use of identity first and person first language throughout my presentation slides to meet the preferences of both autistic self-advocates as well as the professional community and those who have an autism diagnosis that do not prefer identity first language. So the first tension here I wanted to cover to make sure that we're aware of is person first versus identity first language. The second one is functioning level versus support level. So continuing with this language around disability in general, I ask you to think about these terms. How many of you frequently hear or see the terms low functioning or high functionings? Do you hear them routinely used in meetings, in conversations in your community? Do you hear people self-identify as high functioning? Do you hear people talk about, their kids, oh, he's high or low functioning? How about on IEPs? Do you see these terms listed? Then take a look at the slide in this, 3-column box here, the 3 functional levels of autism. This represents the DSM criteria levels 1, 2, and 3. So what language do you not see here? High and low functioning. High and low functioning labels are not part of any diagnostic criteria, and they're not something that should be used. You may be wondering why. And it's because high and low functioning cannot capture the considerable variation in capability and capacity that an autistic individual or an autistic with a different disability label has. Plus, high and low functioning labels put the onus of the disability on the person, and it categorizes them across all of their traits. For example, a student with a sensory sensitivity may need a high level of support in the loud, crowded school cafeteria or gym, but a low level of support in reading class. In other words, it may often be the environment that's the disabling factor. You could remember back to our first short video conversation on the social model of disability. And, it really makes you realize that high and low functioning is not appropriate. And, more simply put, high and low functioning labels are terms that shouldn't be used and that marginalize and many times oppress disabled people. So moving on from those 2 larger tensions of person first versus identity first language and functioning levels, let's get back to neurodiversity and consider some terms that are frequently used, and I want to cover some terms that are frequently misused. The terms neurodiverse and neurodivergent in the top row here are not interchangeable and are often used incorrectly. So neurodiverse refers to a group in which members have a variety of brain differences. Groups are neurodiverse. So for example, we have a neurodiverse K-12 student population. One person, however, cannot be neurodiverse. So think about the fact that one person does not have multiple brains. That might be helpful. So then think about the term neurodivergent. Neurodivergent refers to a person with a brain that functions differently from the societal standard. So individuals are neurodivergent. For example, the neurodivergent student excels in creative thinking. So oftentimes people will use neurodiverse to refer to one person when they mean to use neurodivergent. In the second row, of course, we've already defined neurodiversity, and that's the diversity of human brains. That's a natural variation and a fact. And a usage example there would be we recognize the neurodiversity of our student population. And now we also have the term neurotypical. Neurotypical refers to a person with a brain that functions in alignment with the societal standard, the opposite of neurodivergent. So if you do not have any kind of disability diagnoses, you don't have a self-diagnosis, you probably identify as neurotypical. An example would be the neurotypical students may also benefit from a choice of assignments. And of course, we've already talked through the terms of the third row, person first and identity first language. So some additional language that may help us with the tensions we've identified, as well as with the social justice aspect of neurodiversity, are on this slide. Ableism and disableism. So ableism and disableism are synonyms. They can be used interchangeably. That ableism can be defined as prejudice against those who are not able-bodied. In other words, discrimination or social oppression against people with disability. So ableism is not a positive term. Ableism is the term to call out when people with disabilities are being oppressed. In the second row, the terms camouflaging and masking, they refer to individuals behaving in ways to pass, often as non-autistic. Often autistic, we use these words in connection to people who are autistic. And, their behavior to, or their choice to pass as non-autistic or neurotypical, and it's often as a result of being taught they need to do so, or that they will not be accepted if they don't camouflage. Then in the third row here, we have the terms disclosure and intersectionality. So disclosure refers to an individual's choice to share their disability label and or personal disability information. And of note, it should always be an individual's choice whether or not they disclose a disability label. And often individuals are not comfortable doing so for fear of repercussions from past experience. And this reality really speaks to the need for recognizing disability as diversity and for the neurodiversity movement. And as an example, I know at university campuses, there are many students who camouflage their disability, do not disclose their disability for, fear of some repercussions, and it results in them not receiving the accommodations that they really do deserve to help them to be successful. The term intersectionality refers to the overlapping factors such as ability and disability, race, and gender that are all important to the identity and the identity formation of individual groups. And of note, all impact mental health and identity formation. So now that we have considered the language around neurodiversity, let's conclude by revisiting our anticipation guide from the start of this session. So it's time to find that piece of scrap paper or remember your selections. Number one, person first language is the preferred language referring to people in the autism spectrum. The final response should be disagree, as identity first language is actually the language preferred by many autistic self-advocates. Number two, the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria distinguishes between high functioning and low functioning autism. The final response should be disagree. In fact, we should not use the terms high and low functioning. Number three, the statement, the neurodiverse student may be reluctant to disclose their disability to others, is worded professionally. Now, this one may have been a trick statement. I hope you picked up the misuse of the term neurodiverse here and disagreed. In fact, the statement should read, the neurodivergent student may be reluctant to disclose. As remember, one person cannot be neurodiverse. And finally, number four, ableism is the practice of accommodating for people with disabilities to allow them to be able to be successful. No, that is completely incorrect, and ableism is discrimination against people with disabilities. So finally, I leave you with a few takeaway questions to consider. Why is language use surrounding disability so important? And how can we ensure our language use promotes inclusivity in our P-12 schools, on college campuses, and in our communities? Thank you for taking part in our LRC-South short video series on neurodiversity. And for additional information, you can find this presentation linked by our LRC-South staff to our website so that you can access the various links. Thanks so much.